everybody. Welcome to Eden Fractal. We're here at our 92nd meeting, and I have the pleasure to be here with Will from Kingfishers Media and Eric and Rosemary. Eric was talking about lots of experience with organizational development, all sorts of cool stuff he's up to, and we were catching up about some exciting stuff, but we're about to get into, I think, a strategy session here at Eden Fractal. So thanks everybody so much for joining, and hope you're having a wonderful day. If anyone wants to say hello or share any thoughts on your mind, then feel free. I have a presentation ready too, so perhaps I'll get into share a little presentation about Eden Fractal for anyone who's not familiar and what we're up to here, and then we can discuss our strategy. I see Will sharing a thumbs up, so thank you, Will. I appreciate that. So yeah, everybody, welcome to Eden Fractal. Everybody can learn more at edenfractal.com if you're not familiar already with Eden Fractal. It's a community that creates innovative games, shows, and tools. And we recently formed our vision that all communities and organizations have the tools and methods to make the best possible decision making fair, fast, and fun. And we're also on a mission to implement fractal decision-making processes throughout society via collaborative research, development, education, gamification, and community engagement. We actually talked a little bit about what are fractal decision-making processes that Will had asked last week, so I'll share the video for that in a little bit, but we'll talk about that, how we're going to implement these and what those are. And everybody's welcome to join our events. We host Eden Fractal now for this our 92nd weekly event that we've hosted, where oftentimes we play consensus games, like the Respect game to optimize decision-making, but also we sometimes just do open discussions as well. But everybody's welcome to join these events to collaborate with innovators and learn about these powerful tools and help create the future of collaboration. And we produce videos of each week as well. So you can check out edenfractal.com/videos, or there's a YouTube channel for Eden creators where you can learn more. And we're building tools too. So I invite you to join the events every week on Wednesdays, I'm sorry, at 16 UTC, and invite your friends as well. We love to meet people and have lots of collaborations we can offer as well. Rosemary put these messages out. She always puts out great messages in the Eden Fractal Telegram group at t.me/EdenFractal, where she talks about how we are working to refine our strategy and so forth, inviting everybody to join. And you can also learn more about our vision, our strategy, and how we came to consensus about all these different things in the pages on the website, where you can see all the videos where we produced, where we use these consensus processes to form our mission and strategy, and where we'll also use it to form our strategy going forward. I should have said mission and vision. The video from last week has been published in the Eden Fractal chat, so everybody can see it there. Rosemary shared it, and as always, you can always see timestamps in each of these too, so you can easily find where you said something or where different people said something and watch the whole thing. And then if you check out the Eden Creators YouTube channel, we have lots of cool shows. We're also publishing shows from Optimism Fractal every week, and many other educational, entertaining shows too, where you can learn more about lots of great things to help communities cooperate and coordinate. And of course, you can see all of them on this website here, where you can learn about the recent videos. We were posting on Warpcast too and Twitter, so I encourage everybody to like and retweet and spread the word to help people enjoy the cooperative benefits with decentralized governance and so forth. And each week we organize our meetings at Eden Fractal with a social coordination game we call Agendas, where basically people can vote with respect on different topics they want to discuss, respect they've earned in different games. But also, we kind of just have like a pretty lax way to go around too. So if anybody has any topics you want to discuss here, feel free to just let us know, or in the Telegram chat as well throughout the week. I put up a topic on a polling app we use called Consortium, just to have a strategy session, kind of like we did last week or in the past couple of weeks, just to have a kind of relaxed discussion. So whatever anybody has in mind, feel free to share. If you have any questions, then feel free to share as well. And we can work out of this Eden Fractal Notion page if we want to, where we had been previously keeping a lot of notes about our vision, strategy, and mission. And we have a bunch of notes about the strategy that we discussed in a few different meetings, like what are the products that we're building and who are the consumers, target markets, go-to-market strategy, and so forth. I also want to mention too, I mentioned Optimism Fractal a couple of times. Everybody's welcome to join Optimism Fractal on Thursdays at 17 UTC. And this is a place where you can try out a lot of the different fractal decision-making tools and processes and games that we're building here. And there's also a lot of work that we're doing, kind of relevant to the strategy of Eden Fractal, about Optimism Fractal strategy, about all sorts of different projects that we're coordinating there to build the tools and so forth. So I think Eden Fractal and Optimism Fractal can do quite a few collaborations, and encourage people to check it out if you're interested in implementing these tools throughout society like we are. But anyway, thanks for listening to the presentation. I'll stop my screen share now, and I'm happy to hear everybody's thoughts. I know Will, thanks so much again for joining us since last week. It was a pleasure seeing you at the Optimism Fractal meeting last week, as well as the Eden Fractals meeting. I'm curious what you thought about in general from last week's meeting. Also, thanks as always to Eric and Rosemary for being so welcoming and helping to lead and helping everybody cooperate with these processes so much. So happy to hear everybody's thoughts, but I see Will's unmuted. So Will, would you like to share what's on your mind? And also I'd be curious to hear if you have any reflections from your experience last week.
Yeah, no, it was a great experience on both events that you outlined. So I truly do appreciate that opportunity for that. It's given me some really good clarity and insight, learning more, not just about Eden Fractal's community, but also the larger optimism community as well, which is, something that's been an emphasis not only for me personally, but also as a company effort with Kingfisher's Media to become more involved in the optimism ecosystem. We understand the grand vision for the optimism superchain model, and we definitely want to have a participatory role in that.
Sounds great. Well, thanks so much. Well, I have some comments there, but I see Eric unmuted, so pass it to Eric.
Yeah, so we're talking strategy, and there's two types. So you can either go after somebody big, have something. You have to worry about that if you don't have a product that's completely understood, and that don't have the resources to scale, because if you get popular and you can't scale, that's a killer too. So most of what we've been talking about is a local strategy: start small, perfect our product market fit, and growing. I've been thinking lately, as a result of a hackathon that I was on the winning team for, of this idea of hyper local, promoting localities by attracting the community members and visitors to communities, by uniquely understanding what is special about them and promoting it by innovative and experiences. So that's getting, their local resources, their talent, their history, their venues, and rolling that up. So I'm hoping to use this in that effort to actually target those organizations within the community that can be helped by this, and energizing them individually, and then hopefully putting them together as communities, and then hopefully recruiting other communities into this idea. Would you like to help understand what's special about you? You like to promote what's special about you through these innovative experiences. But that comes down to this big thing: what is the product? So it starts with what specific problem are we starting from a specific group? And I think that has to be our strategy, because you always lead with the problem. I don't know if everybody's watched properly. Here's what I see. But in the US, we're all familiar with with TV commercials. Those are seen on TVs. And if you look at the strategy, it's always problem, agitate, solution, offer, and features. So it's like, don't you hate it when you come home and you're holding things in your hand and it's dark and you can't see, and you fall and drop your packages and things get broken and you get hurt and you have to go to the hospital? Isn't that horrible? Oh, it's so bad, it's horrible. But now, what if you could just clap your hands and the lights come on? Now, order our features with this, you get that, it includes this. And so when you think about we don't have to have an infomercial, but that idea of starting with the problem first, a well-defined problem, is, I think, that's the key thing. It starts with, what is a well-defined problem that's specific enough and simple enough that we could solve it in the next 90 days? What could we do for them?
Well, that's a good question and good points. Thank you, Eric. I see Rosemary shared some comments in the chat. Rosemary, would you like to share those aloud for everybody? Or share your thoughts in general?
Yeah, I said, adverts start with the problem as a question too, in adverts, or a question to intrigue the users. Exactly.
Yeah, that's just a way of presenting the problem. Yeah, there's lots of ways. That's a great ways. And a lot of those TV commercials, don't you hate it? What would you do? What would you have? So they do a lot of questioning. That's one technique which is very effective.
So we need to make
But
infomercials.
no,
Just
we
kidding.
just need to think about the reason why they're good models is because they only get a few seconds, so they capture people's attention very quickly. And I ran a performance marketing agency for a few years, and we ran tons of companies through that. That's what we had to do is, what is your basic model of problem solution offer. So the problem that isn't going to work great for a lot of those organizations is, would you like fractal governance? By the same token, would you like a mortgage? Would you like insurance? No, no, and no. Would you like to be able to afford a house or lower your house payments? Yes. Would you like to protect your family? Yes, I would. So there's not a big market of people who are hungry for fractal governance, but they are hungry for, I think they're starting to understand that building a culture is really important. And team building. If you just do a keyword search, I did that and looked for things, and there's some common themes they do in team effectiveness, efficiency, culture, things like that. Companies, for example, spend a lot of money on team building, and a lot of it's not very good because it's just like, well, let's do stuff. Yeah, but why? What do you get out? Well, you build team, and the goal isn't just to build team. It's to actually get specific outcomes, which I think we can do. Anecdotally, we've proven that. Hopefully with my dissertation, we'll prove it numerically, quantitatively too.
Very interesting points. Thank you very much, Eric. I'm curious.
I think the goal is to write down the problem. I think that would be a good part of our strategy, is to write down the first problem and do a portfolio, jump to the ultimate problem we solve, and then figure out how you go between this first problem to the ultimate problem. That's generally how you build business, is you have okay, you've done this, now let's help you with this, now let's help you with this, and you kind of stair step your way up there. But that is a way where you take this goodness and figure out actually how to roll it out. So in the startup world, we all start with MVP, minimum viable product. What's the first thing we could give that people would could use and find actual value on?
Yeah, I agree. Good points. Thank you very much, Eric, for sharing the wisdom with us. And I'm excited to dive into those. There's something I wanted to respond to Will previously too, and curious, I want to give a bit of space in case Will or Rosemary just have any thoughts you want to jump in with or share. Or else maybe I'll just go ahead. So I was writing some notes out about things that Eric said, and also I wanted to mention too, because I kind of passed on Eric before, but in response to what Will was saying before, I had the opportunity to watch that podcast clip that you shared, Will, that you did with crypto altruism. Yeah, you had shared it in the chat, in the Eden Fractal chat. So thank you very much for sharing that. Love to see the work that people are doing, especially in the regen space too. And there's lots of links you shared too. So I had the opportunity to look through Kingfisher's media, and I think maybe we can kind of like structure our strategic discussion a little bit around what Will is doing to some extent. Because I think for one, like Eric was mentioning, who we want to reach out to and solve a problem for, and I see a big opportunity to collaborate with the regen community. And regen community is people. Well, Will had a thing over here where he explained what regen meant to him, but regen is basically like trying to create a society that's more regenerative, and I suppose we can go more in detail about it. Will said it quite well here, but as a community that is very aligned with optimism, and it just in general very aligned with what we're doing here at Eden Fractal and Optimism Fractal. And that in general, like the community that Eric is working with are also well aligned with, and like we're all kind of striving for that these kinds of fractal decision making processes can help with. So I wanted to like put in that scope a little bit too and share that, and then just thank Will for sharing that. And just say I really enjoyed that. And then I agree with Eric's point about like writing down a specific problem about what we can do to solve for communities, like first, I suppose picking communities or organizations to solve the problem for the target market, or the target segment market, and then figuring out specifically what problem that they have, that we could solve in, say, 90 days, and taking that kind of like, here's this clear problem and here's the agitation and here's the solution. So I suppose something I can ask is like, one, does anybody have any suggestions or recommendations about like, what is that community? I know Eric, for example, you recently won the hackathon and you've been working with several different communities. There's an agricultural community who's interested in using the respect game. And so perhaps those kinds of communities can be a first target market that we reach out to and solve that problem for. I know you're working on that. And we're also working on doing this with Optimism too, where one of the things we're
Oh,
providing is practical decision-making processes, but also like building culture and relationships. And then I know I'm curious about Will's thoughts about like how we could help his work with Kingfisher's media and with the regen movement. And I know Rosemary also has a lot of exciting ideas too, and has thought about this a lot too. So just kind of putting this out there at the stage about how we can maybe take what Eric said about having like a specific, clear strategy about whose problems we could solve and quickly, and then who we want to focus on helping first, or how we should focus on them, what specific problem we should aim to solve.
so the reason that this particular community is actually just not agriculture. It's agriculture, arts, and technology. So they've got a tech hub, and they're actually applying some part of that tech to technology, to agriculture, but it's not just agriculture. It's tech, art, and um, uh, agriculture, but business too, and history. So it's got a good mix. And I think this idea of promoting, you know, hyper local, local, I think it's a great place for regen to plug right in there. Because if you go to a city council and say, how'd you like us to help you with regen? They're like, well, you know, we got potholes to fill and we got this and we're worried about our tax base and all that. So it's not that it can't, but you have to have a huge education framework to get people to go from where they are to regen. But I think if you start with this idea of, well, why don't we make you better, and slip regen as one of those engines, just like tech is an engine and regen is an engine, and regen and tech can go together too. I think that's a good way of getting, you know, I think as a first success is if we get one community to get on board, and the start to that is get one organization in a community to get on board. So I think that's our target, is get one organization that we can work with and make them really successful. They're willing to realize this isn't perfect and it's a learning thing, so they're willing to learn and try with us. And then the second part is, and by the way, I think I have one or two possibilities, maybe even three possibilities within that community. So I've already been working on that. So I think that's the idea, is focus on what can we do for a community, starting with what can we do with the organizations. That's both nonprofit and profit organizations within that community is a good way to start. And again, it just comes down to, if you were the Rotary Club, or you know, avocado growers, or or art institute, you know, an art, big, huge art, nonprofit art thing, what problems could we solve for you? And then we just have to, I think, light a lot of fires. If we come up with a good initial presentation, then we just give that like crazy and wait till somebody goes, can I talk more about that? And then you narrow it down to get one that says, ooh, I'm willing to try it. And it's a lot easier to do that within one community than go all over. Can we find this community over there? And the reason is because if they're local to one of us, then we can have somebody right there to do the physical part. You know, once you get the product market fits and all that, then it doesn't really matter. You can do it to anybody. But I think being able to actually go visit and talk with the people is a bonus. So if there's somebody near where Dan, you, or Kingfisher, or Rosemary, you know, I think that would be really helpful too. And if we get that presentation, we can go to all our communities and do that. So we get one until that spark lights a fire. And then hopefully it doesn't go out. It might. sometimes when you light a fire, it starts and it goes up. So, you know, you have to keep doing that. So you get one and you feed it and it goes. And then once you get 3, then we're ready to scale. Anyway, that's my thoughts.
Yeah, thanks, Eric. Good points. And we do have some, like, for example, there's Optimism Fractal that is currently using it, and several people from Eden Fractal are also using these kinds of processes at Optimism Fractal, and overall the reaction has been very nice there. And there's several other communities who are using these fractal consensus processes as well each week. And I'm also in talks with some organizations. There's one that wants to bring hundreds of people to play the Respect game each week in the next few months. So I think these could provide the kind of sparks and those kinds of seeds to grow this in many ways. And I agree that we can get to points where we're attracting many more people and many more communities overall, but we need to be diligent and focusing exactly what those communities need the most. I saw Will unmuted a couple times. That Will, did you want to respond or share any thoughts here?
I mean, I am in agreement and in accordance with what Eric was saying, right? As far as getting the energy flow starting. When we look at, you know, what you guys, and I'm the newcomer to the block, right? And I'm still learning about this community, but what I see surface layer, what you guys have built and continue to build upon, is a concept that I feel would be an easy, natural fit for a lot of communities that are regenerative in nature, which is where the regen terminology comes from, being regenerative in the natural sense rather than being extractive, like what we've seen develop through, you know, big corporations and stuff through the years. Yeah, I think there's a lot of resonance there, right? And the regen community would be like an easy way. Once they see it in action, it would be an easy way for them to buy in, for them to subscribe, to say, hey, yeah, this is something we want to implement in our community. And outside of Kingfisher's Media, I am also attached to another community of regen called the Let's Grow DAO. And the whole point and purpose and mission of the DAO is to grow the regen movement, not just inside of Web3, but also from a more natural sense outside of Web3 as well. We're not there yet. We're still growing. We're still adding members. But it's been a very eye-opening experience of how to build an open community from the bottom up, right? So I think, you know, there's a lot of leverage there that we can introduce some of the mechanics, game theory that you guys have developed here that could be, you know, a natural fit over there. So that's one thing that comes to mind. Also, I'm in agreement with Eric on starting small, right? And building these like small use cases, so like smaller communities. Because case in point, Dan, you were in Denver. I don't know if you got to go to Edge City at all or not, but the concept behind Edge City is fully embraced of the Zuzulu concept, which is basically, you know, you start the small villages and then you allow them to kind of permeate out into the natural ecosystem, right? So, yeah, I'm loving everything that I'm hearing. Thank you for being here 2 weeks in a row. I'm going to continue to be here as we grow, and whatever I can contribute to the solutioning or to the problem solving or to the building of this community, I'm all for it.
Thanks so much, Will. I really appreciate you joining and helping lead it so much. And yeah, some great thoughts about how we can collaborate with Let's Grow as well. But I think Eric wants to say something too. So
Well,
maybe we'll pass to Eric first.
There's that hidden agenda within our mission, which talks about through society. So a lot of us have lost faith with the fact that it can be done from the top down, because the top down is paid for pretty heavily. So if we take this idea of the village from the bottom up, so that's why I'm into it. It's not just because it does for the individual or the communities, but it actually can put in place has at least a potential to put in place and grow to what we really want, which is to influence those big decision making. But starting with a local community is very fractal. Starting with organizations community and then stacking those organizations to like a city, for example, and stacking the cities, that's, you know, it goes back to fractal. in core. Not that I'm saying we shouldn't stop those network state-like organizations. Huge fan of that, because that's coming at it from the other side. But that says, you know, what if the government never goes, okay, well, let's just form governments outside of that. It's kind of what that's saying is, we don't trust the governments anymore, so we'll just create our own virtual governments, maybe even without geographic boundaries. So I think that, you know, needs to be at least explored too. So I like the fact that you're doing that. But I always get back to the question is, how are we going to do, you know, kind of what Dan Larimer talked about, which is reform everything else. Just the thought, linking that back to our mission of how do we go throughout society. Do we do that through a network state kind of concept? Do we do that through a building block community concept?
Good points, Eric. Yeah, and good question too. You need both a short-term strategy and a long-term strategy as well. Short-term strategy to provide what the local communities need, and then have that as a way to transition to throughout all society. Because, well, I believe that, and our mission states that we're aiming to spread this throughout society, and I believe that there will be millions of community organizations using this in the next couple of years or so if we play our cards right and so forth. By the way, Eric, there is a little like background noise when you're talking. It sounds like somebody's hammering something. If you go to the Zoom audio settings and then maybe change the background noise removal, it's not a huge deal, but it is slightly distracting. So
I will switch over to my computer from this. I've got some roofers. Yeah, sorry.
oh, okay, no problem. I hope that your roof is doing well and hope it comes out nicely. For anybody not familiar too, Eric had mentioned Daniel Larimer, who is he's a great innovator in the space, and he originally came with this kind of consensus process that we're using here. And he has a book that Eric had mentioned last week called More Equal Animals, where he describes how these processes could create a better society as a whole, like imagining where if all kinds of decisions and all kinds of organizations use this kind of fractal decision-making process from the lowest to the highest levels of society, how helpful that could be. Um, so I want to, there's been a lot of great points here, and we have about 25 minutes left or so until the end of the call. I want to touch a little bit also on what Will said there, that Will was seeing this fitting well with the regen community. And something that Eric has said previously is like, maybe we can weave in the regen movement into reaching out with other communities, which I agree with. And we want to grow the regen movement in general, and very aligned with the ideas of let's grow. And there's not that many people who are familiar with the regen movement, like throughout society. I think it's still like relatively small, but for sure growing. But then also that's a specific community as well that's doing quite well. Like what's going on with Let's Grow is very exciting. We were talking before to us speaking with Jimi, who's another one of the co-founders, and he was quite interested in the consensus games and tools that we're building here too. And so that could be one of the local communities that we focus on helping the Let's Grow community with these kinds of tools. So I'd be very interested in exploring those kinds of collaborations. You said it would be a natural fit, Will. And I'm curious how you could see it fitting in, if there's anything we could do to help with that. And then also, we just haven't heard that much from Rosemary as well. I know Rosemary has lots of wisdom, and I'm sure she's been soaking this information. So I'm curious if Rosemary has any thoughts you want to share with this. Also, on like kind of more fun side, I know Rosemary's been getting into like fashion, and she's also a musician and all sorts of other stuff too. So I was speaking with her over the past week about how we could help like fashion communities or like fashion, influencers, or and I've been thinking for a long time, I'm a musician as well, about helping musicians with these kinds of things too. So I suppose those might come at a later step after it's more developed. But also worth considering too, like how these processes can help really everybody and all kinds of interests. So I see Will unmuted, and curious, Rosemary, if you want to share more, we'd love to hear from you at some point. But I suppose first we'll pass it over to Will.
Thanks, Dan. Appreciate it. Just speaking of the natural fit in the regen community, right? Gamification in these experiences, I think is, I wouldn't say it's an important focus for the regen community, but it is an attractant, right, for the regen community to learn how they can be more gamifying the experiences that they're supportive of. I also see too, as far as the natural fit, I mean, it's in the name, Eden Fractals, right? So fractals, I think you guys explained last week, drawing the inspiration from nature and how nature fractionalizes or fractals its ecosystems, right? The regen community is very much involved with natural initiatives, natural projects that are going to support the environment, but also humans in general as well, right? So that's why I think this would be a natural fit to kind of introduce it to one of the regen communities. It doesn't have to be the Let's Grow Down. That's just one that I'm attached to. But if anybody has any other thoughts on that, no pride in authorship here.
Sounds great. Yeah, I'm very interested in what's going on with Let's Grow. I think there's I joined one of the Twitter Spaces over the past couple of days, and it was really cool. So I'd love to collaborate with Let's Grow as well as many other communities in the Let's Grow space too. And also before we started recording, you were showing your shirt too, the really cool and fashionable Filament Matter shirt. I had the pleasure to meet Kevin Owocki, with the founder of or co-founder of Gitcoin. Anybody who's not familiar, Fundamental Matters is created by Gitcoin. That's like Gitcoin's kind of motto and slogan. They just released the Gitcoin 2.0 white paper, where they talk about how like Gitcoin's very regen. And actually, Kevin Owocki also talks a lot about mycology and mushrooms, and how nature is like mushrooms are like the oldest fractal, like the oldest living like organism, where most of the world's biomass is in mushrooms. And it happens through like a fractal pattern. And so one of the things he mentioned in that white paper is that Gitcoin is aiming to uh, implement like Gitcoin used to just be quadratic funding basically, which is a great mechanism, but they're also expanding to retro PGF and other ways to allocate capital and help communities make decisions and so forth. So one of the things I've been interested in collaborating with Gitcoin about is like what if Gitcoin introduced some of the products that we're building here as part of their product offering as well. Just an idea as well. I mean, there's lots of different organizations that could take part in this, but I see lots of opportunity for collaborations between regen organizations like Let's Grow and like Gitcoin to integrate these systems, to use them, and also especially Gitcoin is like specifically reaching out to different organizations and offering them to different organizations. So that's something that I'd be interested in exploring, and happy to see how we can help do that. One note too that we discussed last week is that we're in the process of building an app that makes it a lot easier playing these games too. So over time we'll have like more better tools to do it. We already have pretty good tools to do it as well. I know Will tried out Fractalgram for the first time last week, I think. But yeah, basically it's a matter of thinking about which communities we should focus on first and how we should do so. So happy to hear if anybody has thoughts about that, or also if anybody has other thoughts about the strategy too, we can also zoom out, and happy to hear whatever is on everybody's mind. Seems like we're deep in thought. Rosemary, do you have any thoughts you'd like to share?
No.
Okay. Well, happy to hear whenever any
Well,
thoughts
as
come
you
to
know,
mind.
can you hear me now?
Yes.
You hear hammering?
I do not hear hammering.
Good, good, because hammering is actually going on, but so my AI is filtering that out effectively, so that's good.
Very nice.
Very nice. So, I think you're working with Optimism, and you're working with other communities that we've talked about. I think, stick with those. And I think Will working with Regen and Let's Grow. I think that's good. I'm working with a city and organizations within the city. That's good. I think what we're missing is the pitch for all of us to more effectively tell these people what we can offer them. I think we've got targets right there, just whichever one works first. If Optimism goes big, we could start looking at other organizations that are basically online communities and focus on getting that. And I won't stop getting it local, but we can put focus on that. The local thing kicks up. So I just say is we're kind of it's a beach at Normandy kind of thing. We're all hitting the beach and seeing which one opens first, and then we'll line up all the forces in that and go, because we don't know which ones, and in truth we can't really predict that very well. So
Yeah,
I think that
I'm in full agreement with you, Eric, too. And just to give you some perspective about the Let's Grow DAO. So we are built on Optimism. We are taking up block space on Optimism. So, I mean, you know, I know the Optimism community is a fairly large community. So trying to tackle that elephant one bite at a time, maybe the Let's Grow DAO is the entry point for that, right? You know, maybe Kingfisher's, well, I wouldn't say necessarily positioning Kingfisher's media right now would be ideal, like an introduction to it. But I mean, we could do some more exploration on that. But I think if the target is the regen community, if the target is regen communities that are built on optimism, then you know my inclination would be just to introduce the concepts, the mechanisms, the game theory that's being developed here to the Let's Grow DAO, especially the 9 core members. So it's me and 8 others, and then kind of you know allow us to kind of sift through everything and see what could be implemented.
Sounds
Yeah,
good,
and
Will. So,
when you're looking at a community, it's kind of important on the culture of that community. For example, I did a lot of government stuff, so you can deal with just take defense, for example, because it's a clear example. You can do with the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine Corps, but the best ones to start with would be the Army, and the worst ones would be special forces, because the Army will try it out and go, hey, that didn't work, here's what we learned. You know, they go in with that expectation that things may not work the first time, and they'll, if they like something, they'll keep doing it. If you go to special warfare, if it doesn't work once, if anything breaks, they'll never talk again about it. So in other words, they're a really bad organization to try things out. So, you know, if we get groups like Optimism or Regen that are really kind of that idea of in the visionary mode, which is we'll try something new if it'll get us, we'll take some risk if it'll get us somewhere we want to be, but we don't expect it to work the first time, is a real important culture to have with our first customers.
very interesting. I suppose for the audience, maybe I'll go and quickly share some visuals so people can understand what we're talking about if you're not familiar with some of these different organizations we're talking about here. First, this is the Let's Grow DAO. You can see that Let's Grow.network. As Will said, it's on a mission to unite and grow the regen movement. And it's got a really cool website. And I know that Let's Go is really active in the Gitcoin season as well. So I encourage people to check out the website. They also put out a bunch of great stuff on Twitter stuff as well. So you can check out all sorts of events and community hub stuff that they have going on too. And then I had mentioned Gitcoin too. I think probably most viewers are familiar with Gitcoin, but if you're not, I recommend checking it out. It's a great opportunity to earn funding in the EVM and Ethereum ecosystem. They've given out, I think, over $50 million worth of funding, or $60 million worth of funding towards public goods. It was originally thought up by Vitalik Buterin. He co-wrote a paper with this idea of quadratic funding, which we talked about a lot here at Eden Fractal before. And then, yeah, they have this new white paper, and they have something called the Grand Stack, which they're aiming to implement these kinds of systems like quadratic funding and potentially like fractals and respect game in there as well. So just a little bit of context for everybody here, and recommend checking them out and learning more. Um, yeah, I think they have like 10 minutes left. If we wanted, we could always wrap it up early too, but this is it's quite interesting, and I'm interested to know, like, I suppose, what are the best next steps? We've kind of talked a lot about picking communities to choose, like picking communities uh to target and to provide these, and trying it with several different communities and picking the right ones. I'm curious if anybody has any thoughts here that you want to share, or I'm also I'm specifically interested in what Will is working on too, because you know, we just met Will over the past week or so, and Will is like kind of in one of the target markets that I've been aiming to like reach out to more. I remember seeing Let's Grow DAO on Twitter like 4 or 5 months ago, and I was like, oh, that looks really cool. I'd love to get in contact with whoever's running this and whoever's doing it and so forth. And it seems like they're really aligned. So I'm happy to go in any direction if anybody has anything else in mind. But that's one thing that I would personally be quite interested in, like learning just like what can we do, like what I suppose what are the needs of Let's Grow, and like when would you want to implement this if you are, or do you have questions that you'd be curious about? Like perhaps we can kind of use Let's Grow and your work with Kingfisher's Media and Regen as like a as kind of like a sample or like a pilot kind of use case kind of thing. But I obviously want to help, yeah, want to help Let's Grow as much as possible, but also in terms of like instructive, like how could we help serve your needs basically, and what questions would you have? I'd be very interested to hear about that if you did want to share more. I don't want to put too much pressure on it too. I know you're one of the co-founders, but there's 8 other too, so no pressure. But just curious, like what would be
Uh,
most helpful for you?
no, it's good. So one thing about the Let's Grow, I mean, we're figuring it out as we go along. We're figuring out what works well for the community we're attached to. The inspiration of this came from doing 24/7 broadcast, like you said, Let's Grow Live, right? That's what kicked off this whole DAO effort. So doing a 24/7 broadcast over a 15 day period supporting Gitcoin Grant Season 19 told us a lot about the community and the people that resonate with the messaging of the community that we're looking to develop. So yeah, we can definitely figure out a strategy to introduce this to that community at large, outside of the core members, or we can target the core members initially, get their thoughts, get their input, and then from there make it more expansive in the community. I think the latter, rather than the former, is probably the direction you guys would want to go, is dealing directly with the core DAO founders initially, given us time to analyze it, put in some qualified research into it, which I'm already a big fan of. So they're gonna take my sentiment, for what it's worth. But with that being said, yeah, I would say, you know, we can set something up definitely, and we can talk about it in our Telegram channel of the entry point for that conversation.
Okay, sounds great. Well, thank you. I'm not sure I don't think I've joined the Let's Go Telegram channel yet, or if you meant the Eden Fractal Telegram channel, but if you want to
The
share a
Eden
link to that,
Fractal
or
Telegram channel.
oh,
Sorry. Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, yeah, sounds good. And I look forward to get more involved with Let's Grow. I just, as I said, I listened to the first couple Twitter Spaces recently, and really excited to get more involved. So I'm happy to join. I believe you have a Discord or something, so I'll join that, and then happy to follow up in the Eden Factor Telegram chat. And if any questions come to mind, like if there's any resources that you'd like to look in more detail, or if you just have general questions about how these processes or tools or games could be helpful, or could be used by Let's Grow, then would be happy to discuss it, and would be happy to also speak with the other founding members as well. And also, I suppose one thing we can also offer, as you said, Let's Grow is operating on Optimism. I think you said, and Optimism
That's correct.
Fractal
Yeah.
is dedicated to it's very highly aligned with the mission, I think, of Let's Grow. It's dedicated to fostering collaboration and awarding public goods creators on optimism. So I suppose two different routes that could work for Let's Grow or similar organizations is one, these tools are all open source, and we have lots of educational material to be able to implement your own kind of respect game or your own kind of game in Let's Grow. And you could have, like, I know you have Twitter Spaces and you have other events going on. So you could have these tools and games being implemented directly into the Let's Grow events. And then also everybody from Let's Grow is welcome to join Eden Fractal events and Optimism Fractal events. And particularly the Optimism Fractal events are focused on fostering collaborations on optimism and awarding public goods creators on optimism. So that can be a great place. And I invite everybody from Let's Grow to join, as well as everybody who's generally interested in the regen movement and anybody who's interested in specifically these consensus processes, and refining them and how to grow them and so forth. Then Eden Fractal provides an excellent place to learn more about how to do so. And everybody's welcome to join both events, of course.
I think the next step is to essentially write down our infomercial, to actually physically write it down, kind of like we did before with the mission and the vision and mission is what start with, don't you hate it when, which like Rosemary talked about,
That's a great one. That's
right,
a great
actually
opening question.
write down the problem, either don't you hate it when, or another one is, well, when this and this and this.
Good
I think
point.
that's the first step, is to get our, when, well, what we do is,
I know in the past, Eric, you talked about how there's a bit of background noise, by the way. For some reason, I hear, I don't know if that's Eric or somebody else. I'll just try meeting you for a second. Okay. I know in the past, I think last week you were discussing how we can offer decision-making processes. That's our mission here at Eden Fractal to implement these decision-making processes throughout the society, but also and we have decision-making processes. Like for example, Optimism Fractal has a consensus process, Eden Fractal has a consensus process, but also what we really succeeded most at so far is building culture and bringing together people and like building relationships basically and fostering these collaborations. And over time, we'll get better and better at these decision-making tools and processes because we have the foundations to do so and we're working on those tools. But so I suppose in our kind of first statement, in our first infomercial or whatever we may call it, that may be something we want to focus on. I'm curious, Eric, or anybody else here, if you have any suggestions or recommendations. We only have 5 minutes left, so maybe we shouldn't get into it too much. But
I,
if before we wrap it up, like any suggestions about what that kind of infomercial should target, what kind of problem it should target, and what should be the solution?
I think it's the 3 C's. It's culture, communication, and connection. We're building culture is the big thing. We're building communication, and because we're building respect and knowledge, is you're actually on a social framework building more connections. Those are some ideas.
Yeah, I like the 3 C's. But then what would be the problem statement? It'd be like, don't you hate it when there's not enough culture, communication, or connection, or like when your community is just like not vibing or not together, you don't have a common like place to come together, something like that. Well, here's a solution that offers culture,
Well,
communication,
one
and
is,
connection.
what don't you hate it when you really don't know what's going on within your organization, and there's not a feeling of a connection, and you don't have a good way of um, really, I guess the culture is a hard one, but the um, culture is really, don't you hate it when you don't feel like you're all rolling in the same direction? But don't you hate it when you feel like you're in a boat and everybody's rowing out of sync? Wouldn't it be great if everybody was rowing in the same direction and you were going to the same place? That's kind of the idea of the culture part, I think. And the communication is, and don't you hate it when stuff happens and you don't know what's going on, and there's information you're throwing away. These have to be refined, and you know, uh, if there's a lack of knowing and really respecting people, if there's a distance between people somehow, there's a lot. The words can be a lot better, but I think those are some examples of concepts.
Interesting. Yeah, I like the 3 C's, culture, communication, and connection. I like the idea of rowing too. It made me think of Sync's mission and Sync's progress that they're doing. So Sync, for anybody who's not familiar, it's we mentioned Dan Larimer, who wrote the book, and he started this consensus process, and this is the organization he's working with now, and they're developing an app for this and a network for this. And they're all about syncing, which is like a form of coordinating activity, which is kind of similar to rowing. And it reminded me a little bit too when Rosemary first joined Eden Fractal back for the first time in like week 36 or 35 or whatever that was. She'd said like one of the things that she'd found at previous jobs that she didn't like so much is that it was difficult to hear everybody's voice. You know, a lot of times there was like just like one boss who was kind of like leading everything and making a decision, and people couldn't necessarily share what uh, people didn't have the opportunity to voice their opinion and hear what the community wasn't able to connect and hear each other. So I think that there's something really good there about coordination that we can offer as well. Maybe that's a 4th C, I don't know, but something to consider. And great thoughts. Thank you, Eric. I want to
I,
also,
I think I think the 4th C is our next product.
okay, interesting. The decision-making product.
Yeah, I think the 4th C is what we get after you have the first 3 down,
Mm-hmm.
because you're building the infrastructure for coordination.
Yep. And you need to have that culture, communication, connection, and then that kind of that infrastructure, almost like the skeleton or the muscles and everything like that, that are needed to create this kind of coordinating community. or coordinating organization. We're a couple of minutes up to the top of the hour, so I just want to thank everybody. Happy to go a bit longer if we want, but I want to be respectful of everybody's time. We meet every week, whoops, and for some reason it's not loading properly. And you can check out lu.ma/Eden Fractal. We'll be here again on next Wednesday at 16 UTC. And thanks everybody so much for joining and all the amazing discussions. Really insightful.
There's a chance I might not be here next Wednesday. My son's going to be in town, and that might be the only time we can get together.
Okay, well, hopefully you enjoy time with your son. That's very important, of course. And if you have any thoughts that you want to share throughout the week, and we can always feature them in the
I'll
meeting.
be here for anything but that. So if we can coordinate it different, I will try and move it so that I'm here. But if not, you'll know why I'm not here.
Okay, well, thanks for letting us know, Eric. And we always very much appreciate it when you're able to be here and share your insights with us. And we'll work together to get the 4 C's of culture, communication, connection, and possibly coordination, hopefully coordination soon and next week and many weeks after that as well. I'm curious if we should wrap it up. I see Will is unmuting. Yeah, so curious if he has any last thoughts before we wrap it up.
I just want to say thanks for the time. Thanks for the embracing of people into this community. As I said before, just echoing the same sentiment. I really like what I'm finding here, and I'm really curious to see how this grows going forward. So thanks for the time, but I think wrapping it, we're at a natural point for that. So.
Sounds good. Well, thank you so much. Well, really appreciate that and glad you're enjoying it. And I'm very excited to collaborate with you in the future. And feel free to let us know if there's anything else we can do to help you. Curious, anybody else have any last thoughts? Rosemary was pretty quiet this meeting, but I guess she was taking the information. She'll be thinking about it. Curious, Rosemary, if you want to share anything else at the end, or Eric, any last thoughts, or are we ready to wrap it up? I'm ready whenever everybody else is.
Let's wrap it up.
Okay, sounds good. Well, thanks all so much for watching. Really appreciate it, and looking forward to seeing you next week. And 1, 2, 3. Go Eden Fractal.
Go
Thanks
Eden
all.
Fractal.
Go Eden
Go Eden
Fractal.
Fractal.
Woohoo! All right.
Woohoo.
See you all. Thanks.
Okay.